Hello everybody and welcome back to the Overlap Breakdown channel. As always, I'm joined by my co-host Umair, who's a professional football scout and analyst. And we're here today to analyse Bryan Mbeumo's potential move to Manchester United. Okay, so, you know, me and you like to be a little bit pessimistic when it comes to Manchester United because of how rickety the ship's been over the last few seasons. But some good news for United fans is that
really strong,
we're very big on Bryan Mbeumo as a player, and I want to just throw it onto you straight away to talk about what you feel of him as a player, and then we'll go through some of his top line data, what he's done this season, how impressive it is for Brentford, and so forth.
I'm a huge fan of Bryan Mbeumo. I feel like I've been single-handedly pushing Bryan Mbeumo prop for like 3, 4, 4.5 years. And there's a million reasons for that. I think obviously this season we've seen him kind of take that next step at Brentford. Him and Wissa is a brilliant pairing, and with Tony leaving, a lot of people had question marks as to whether Brentford could find that balance and get their goals in. But I've always felt that Bryan Mbeumo was actually my favourite of those two players for a few seasons. The fact that he can do it on the wing, the fact that he can attack in a counter-attacking fashion when Tony didn't play, the fact that he can kind of work off of another player in Wissa and attack the goal really well as well. And he has a huge variety of his goals as well. Good creation out wide as well. I think he's generally a very complete package in terms of his wing play and also almost his second striker or his up front play as well. So there's a lot to like of a player like Mbeumo. And on top of that, the versatility means that there's numerous ways that he can be used, and we'll certainly go into that when talking about Manchester United and the context of that team.
I actually use a phrase from basketball, which is two-way. So I always call him a two-way player. So he's a player who's, on the face of it, when you look at, you know, in the Premier League this season, he scored 20 goals in the Premier League, and you think he's a goal scorer. But he's also top for expected assists in the entire of the Premier League season this season. Despite him only having 7, his expected assists is well up into the 9s and 10s, which is showing that, you know, he's got more expected assists than players like Salah. And he takes corners, but I don't think that's anything to turn your nose up at, because Manchester United are pretty horrific off corners, so he will add that quality as well. But I always look at him as a player who's very good at doing both sides of the coin, and I think Manchester United at the moment lack both sides of the coin in the final third. You know, I think they like a goal scorer, and I think they like someone who can create chances. And I've got a bit of data on the screen for you here, which shows, first of all, we're going to start with the Premier League since 22-23, and we can see that he's in that time, so in the last 3 seasons, he's scored the joint 5th most goals with 38, 11 for XG, goals minus expected goals, he's got 6.3 plus, showing that he's a pretty decent finisher. Assists, joint 10th, goals and assists, joint 6th. So in the last 3 seasons, he's been, in terms of output, one of the best players in the Premier League, top 6 we're talking here, which, and a lot of people have maybe, you know, a lot of people like to play the accountant game at the moment, which is like, how much are they paying? How much are they paying his wages? I look at this player and I think he's an absolutely standout creator, goal scorer, and a player of 25 who is due that move up to the next step. And then when we look at the Premier League in just this season alone, we can see goals joint 4th, but his goals minus expected goals is first. So he's 7.7 plus his expected goals in terms of his performance, which means he's scoring on average 7.7 goals more than he should have this season. Now, me and you have just both spoken about this briefly off camera. I think a lot of people in the social media sphere at the moment are claiming that this could be a unreplicatable season.
He'll regress to the mean and score 7 or 8 goals less.
So I think a lot of people are saying that he's not going to be able to produce the same amount of goals and direct output, even though we just mentioned that he's top for expected assists, but his actual assists are down, showing that the players that he's delivering the ball to aren't as good as a finisher, funnily enough, as he is. And we both agree on this, but you explained it a lot better than me. Can you please explain to us why having a player who has had one season spike up in his expected goals performance, a lot of there is, don't get me wrong, there is a lot of grey areas around that, and you should obviously take it into account. But how you believe that it's not fair to judge his goal scoring prowess on that metric?
So if I just contextualize it in general, I will say that XG over a longer period of time tends to show us a good pattern as to how replicatable, for lack of a better term, someone's goal scoring might be. And often we see strikers kind of have these bounces between periods of really good form and less good form. I always think we have to go back and look at the player, look at the chances, look at the team, and taking all of that into account with XG helps us contextualize why he might be scoring more goals than his XG might be showing us. First and foremost, I think he takes a lot of chances in what would be more difficult areas to score from. Edge of the box, outside of the box, wider areas. Brentford, under Thomas Frank, have often played in transition situations. And in those situations, perhaps there's not as much pressure on the attacker, meaning it might be 2v2 in a counter-attack situation.
Yeah.
In a 2v2 in a counter-attack situation, for example, you might have your attacker here, another player here. All of these players might be a lot higher up if we're talking about, you've burst through on you've burst through on the counter-attack. Now, if Mbeumo was to shoot from here in a counter-attacking situation in a sort of 2v2, he's more likely to score that goal. Whereas if everybody is back behind the ball and a different player was to take a shot from that area, it's a lot harder now to score that goal, even though the XG would be very similar because it's a shot from outside the box. So the situations that he's been in favour him scoring from distance, from awkward angles, because he's often under a bit of less pressure. When we think about Manchester United, particularly this season that has just gone by, Amorim's side have often counter-attacked and found themselves in big counter-attacking situations, often not able to put that final touch away. Garnacho comes to mind as getting a lot of those chances in that final third. And someone like Mbeumo, even if he's shooting from these lower XG zones, is a lot more likely to put those chances away. On top of that, he is somebody who obviously is taking a high number of shots. He shoulders a lot of that responsibility. And by taking a lot of shots, you're going to rack up sort of a lot of low XG chances. And those low XG chances, if you've got a player who's really good at putting chances away from distance or from awkward angles, are going to rack up. The only concern I would have about a player like this, and also about Cunha, for example, because they're both massive XG overperformers, especially last season, would be in a team like Manchester United, if your shot volume is shared out, so if you're not taking as many shots from distance, you're also less likely to put them away. Sometimes it takes 5 or 6 sort of lower quality chances to get one goal that wins you the game. And if you can only get 2 or 3 away because your other attacker's getting 2 or 3 away, you might not put those goals away. But in general, he has the quality. He's shown it in numerous situations. And I think if he has the opportunity to get those shots off, and the team plays in a way that maximizes his quality, then I certainly would expect him to score quite frequently. Actually, the last point, I know I've gone on a big spiel there, the last point, I mentioned this off camera, the first point that noted me to Mbeumo's quality was actually a stat a few years ago, might be 3 or 4 years ago now, where he was the joint most player, sorry, that doesn't make sense. He was the player with the joint most woodworks hit with Lionel Messi. And to me, that flagged, that was actually a green flag. It showed that he was trying difficult chances, but putting them in situations that were really close to going in. He was favouring placement over sheer power, and tweaking that slightly would result in an extra 4, 5, 6 goals a season. So I think that's why he's also exploded recently. But all of those factors together, make me believe that he'll have a good season.
Just jumping off the back of something you said about his transition quality, I've actually got a stat here that shows that combined for goal-ending carries and assist-ending carries, he's tied with Vinicius Junior in second place with 11, and the only player in Europe's top 5 leagues to have more joint goal or assist-ending carries is Mohamed Salah, showing that he is a player who likes to attack space. But funnily enough, I don't think he's a player who relies on space, 100%. which is something that I really enjoy watching about Mbeumo, and I think under Brentford, as you just said there, he's got a lot of transition moments to attack the space. But I'm talking this situation here. If we have 2 players right there, I think he's one of the best players in the league at disorientating a marker and making 1 yard 5 yards. And I think just the way he uses his body when he's 1v1 to open up angles, I think, I mentioned this again to you, but he's got this trademark finish almost like a Mohamed Salah with the left foot across the face of the goalkeeper in terms of going to the far corner. But I also believe his ability to dig out far post crosses and his ability to almost change his mind as to whether he's going to turn a shot into a cross or not always keeps the defender guessing. And I think he's a player who Manchester United will have to get familiar with him, because when I was watching him, he does scan in the box like frequently, but he is a head down dribbler and he's almost relying on the players around him to arrive into the spaces. But his delivery and execution of both shots and crosses in that space, I think you could consider that if say we're talking about expected goals, if that's a 25%, it might go in, it might not. For Mbeumo, I think it's probably 50-50 because he's more favourable in that zone on the pitch as in comparison to the medium player like Garnacho, for example.
Yeah.
So I think, like we're mentioning here, I do understand some concerns with some of the people's underlying numbers. Cunha a little bit more because he's a bit more of a worldly player. He's scored a lot more, 40-yard goals from outrageous angles. Whereas in Mbeumo, I look at his shot selection, the zones in which he's picking up the ball, he's dribbling. I favour him a lot more to replicate them situations.
And he's also at Brentford. He's also in situations against a lower set defence probably more frequently than Cunha was at Wolves anyway.
Yes. And then just before we go on into basically Amorim's use of him and where he will play for Amorim, I've got to show you some graphics here that shows Bryan Mbeumo's touch map, and we can see that again we've got a player who likes to hug the touchline theoretically, but he's also got some patches just inside the half space, which is exactly where he's going to play for Manchester United. And if we look at his chance creating carries map, again, we can see a lot of chances created from a carry, not coming on the line, but coming just inside the pitch. And then his starting location is almost on line with the start of the box. And he's, carrying it into that space and arriving. And as a Manchester United fan, I think the only concern that I have with him translating tactically is starting really narrow instead of starting a little bit wider. So I think if we just move the board up a little bit here, we've got Manchester United, if we have the 3-4-3, so we push the wing backs on, and we've got the two central midfield players and the back three. Mbeumo has been a player this season where I've watched a lot of. He's a player who likes to play in this space here, so where Manchester United's wing backs play. Under Ruben Amorim, the 10s, who are the two players either side of the number 9, are a lot more static and they almost stay in that position waiting for the ball, a half space player. And they're waiting for the ball to feed to, turn the touch from the back to goal into something. And I've enjoyed watching Mbeumo take a touch out wide and come inside. And that's where Amad Diallo comes into this dynamic of the Manchester United team, because I've been a long-standing advocate of, I think Ruben Amorim's system has a lot of tactical weaknesses, and I think one of them is having 3 centre-backs and 2 full-backs in your back 5. And most recently, he's looking like he's going to convert Amad into a wing-back, which is exactly what I want, and to have a more aggressive player right centre-half like a Max Raue. Someone who's more.
I think these wide centre-back pairings are players who are best being used as almost overloads in these channels. Yeah. And the best of these wing backs have been these wide centre backs have been when you've seen them all the way up here, Euro in particular. Yes. They almost play like midfielders in attack, or they should almost play like midfielders in attack. Yeah. So I think seeing nominal fullbacks play in these areas, in Mazraoui, for example, has been a better use of those players. So I certainly agree on that front.
I think just the one thing from me, I think as a Manchester United fan, we saw a lot of this towards the end of the season, especially in the Villa game. We actually seen Bruno Fernandes pushing up into this space just behind the striker as a natural number 10 with the 2 wide 10s either side of him. And I think if Manchester United are going to adopt that shape against especially the lesser opposition, I think that really suits Bryan Mbeumo because it gets him a little bit away from the centre and more into his wider zones. And I think, as we mentioned at the top of this segment, if Amad Diallo is going to play wing back, I want to start seeing Manchester United creating these rotations and causing disorganisation on that side of the pitch. Yeah, and I think it's something that I think Dorgu's got a little bit more winger tendencies than some of the right wing backs we've used this season, but there's no better winger in the squad than Amad Diallo. Yeah. And I think if he is to play wing back, I want to see that connection with Bryan Mbeumo work really well. And I actually trust them to work really well together. And I find it really hard to get excited about signings because of how poor the recruitment has been. I think this is one of the signings in the last few years where I've looked at it and I've gone, 27 goals and assists in the Premier League this season, 25 years old, 50, 60 million. I'm pretty sure I'm calm with that. I think it's probably what you'd pay for a player of that quality. I'm looking at the numbers and I'm trying to, give counter arguments towards myself. Maybe he's overperforming. Maybe he doesn't suit a wide right 10. Maybe he doesn't combine with Amad. Where does Bruno go? And I am finding a lot of solutions to all the questions I'm answering and all the questions I'm asking. So I want to ask you how you feel he would fit in just finally on Manchester United under Ruben Amorim. And what do you just make of the sign as a whole? Because as a Blue, I want you to kind of knock me down a peg here, even though you like him as a player.
Yeah.
Concerns are you fairly confident he'll translate well?
When you mention United's recruitment has been poor, I think what I think back to is all of these sort of poor players that United have signed have gone somewhere else and been fairly good.
Yeah.
And to me, it's a matter of environment and sort of how the player is used within a system. And whether or not they've been sort of given the freedom to show off their qualities in a way that they've been used at their previous team, which has led to Manchester United signing them in the first place. And Mbeumo's shown it in the Premier League for years now.
Yeah.
And we know he's got quality and we know what situations he thrives in. So Manchester United need to use him in those areas. Like you mentioned, this area for him, obviously it gets him closer to goal, it gets him able to shoot. He can dig out these crosses to the back post. Cunha can obviously arrive. There's a good idea in theory there. But we've seen him attack these spaces more in transition, and against lower set defenses, we've seen him a little bit wider.
Yeah.
Ahmad, for me, against lower set defenses, is really strong in these lower areas. In my head, I wonder whether or not it would be beneficial to, when you drop into your settled shape, have Ahmad be this wing back and have Mbeumo ready to combine and counter attack. And then once you're in really settled attack and all your players are pushed forward, like you mentioned here, have Mbeumo float out here and have Ahmad actually be the pockets player. I think that would work really well. And I wouldn't want to see it as static as Mbeumo, just that player in there. So in general, I think there's a lot of solutions like you mentioned. I think it's quite hard to make Bryan Mbeumo fail.
I'm struggling, but
I think
this is Manchester United.
Yeah, so I mean, in about 6 months, I think the title of the rule will be like, why is Mbeumo not making Man United click or something? But I think for all of his qualities, for the fact he's Premier League proven, he can play against the low set defence or counter-attack well. This
is about even mentioning, like you just said there, how physically capable he is with the league. He's incredibly hard-working off the ball. He's so strong. He's fast. I remember watching him against City at Brentford Stadium, and I think there was this one run where he actually started behind Gavardio. They both got up to top speed, and he ended up passing him. And he was underlapping, and I was like, wow, I don't have to worry about can he run? And certain things where you think grey area. And to be honest, I've been very harsh on Ineos's kind of recruitment and stuff, but I think the two first ones address key areas. I'm more so settled on Mbeumo than I am on Cunha. And
also Mbeumo, I think, can play the number 9 position.
Yes.
I think people aren't considering that enough. I think Mason Mount, for this sort of setup, 3-4-2-1, as one of the number 10s, I know he's not been fit. I know he's sort of come into form a little bit towards the end of the season. But even if other signings aren't brought in, I think United still need to bring sort of maybe a number 9 in.
Yeah.
But like I can imagine, for example, Bruno Fernandes in some games with Cunha and maybe Mbeumo or Mason Mount combining with Amad Diallo and Mbeumo down the middle.
Yeah.
I think they're all very good solutions. And the fact that he can play basically all 3 of these positions is... it's a big positive, and I think the direction that Ineos are going in with those 2 signings is really, they've started on a good foot, haven't they?
Yeah, it was one of them signings, like, I know he's from Brentford and people are going to take the mick, but it's like, he's one of them signings when I actually seen us get linked, I was like, wow, that's a signing.
Yeah.
Like, that's how a signing is supposed to feel. And it just, for a player who I've watched for multiple years, me and you've spoke about him so many times, and it's like, I'm really happy with his strengths, our weaknesses, the fixes he provides for the team. I just think he's a player that, old school United would sign. Yeah. And as much as I hate to say it, we are weakening a team around our ballpark. Well, they're a lot better than us, but do you know what I mean? And I'm really happy for this, and it's not often I get excited about United, but it's one of these players that I'm like, yes, the recruitment team have done the job with this player, and I'm very excited to see how he plays at Manchester United. I'm very excited to see him in a Manchester United shirt. And do you have anything else to say?
The most optimistic
we've ever been on. Yeah, I know. It's going to come back to bite us, isn't it? But no. Thank you very much for watching. If you did enjoy, please don't forget to like, comment, and follow the channel. And we'll be back next week for some more analysis. Thank you.